O Allah, guide me among those whom Thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom Thou hast preserved, and befriend me among those whom Thou hast befriended. Bless me in whatsoever Thou dost grant me, and deliver me from the evil of what Thou hast judged. Surely Thou judgest, and none can judge against Thee, and he whom Thou defendest is not disgraced. Blessed art Thou, O Lord, and exalted be Thee above what they set up besides Thee. I bear witness, nothing deserves to be served besides Thee, and I bear witness that Muhammad is Thy servant and apostle. Amen.
Assalamu alaikum, family. Peace be unto you. Ramadan Mubarak. Hope everyone is doing well this morning. This is going to be a very functional talk about consulting, because many of you have asked me not only about my professional background, some of you who are about to graduate from school are thinking about going into consulting, and some of our businesses that we're building, as we're doing for self, we need consultants and advisors. And I think it's important that we just put some knowledge around it, some advice around it, so that we understand what it is and how to utilize it. And so I'm going to share with you a video that I'm going to show, and it's going to just kind of walk you through what a consultant is, what we do, the kind of things that I did when I first started out in my career as a consultant, and how, and then I'll come back after that, and I want to talk to us as business owners about consulting, because the title consulting gets a bad rap because so many people have started to use it and then misuse it. And so as a business owner, you ought to know how to use a consulting firm, how to use a consultant like myself, and why it's beneficial. And I'll tell you off the bat that oftentimes at lower levels of business, people compete. But then when you get into that multi-million-dollar business level, that higher level, people collaborate. And the collaboration sometimes looks like partnerships. Sometimes it looks like consulting and advisory relationships. But if you are trying to take your business to that next level and you're still competing and you still have a competitive mindset and you don't know how to choose a collaborator, you don't know how to choose an advisor, you don't know how to choose a consultant, this is going to be beneficial to you, because you should not be at that plateau in your business going, I really want to move to the next level, but I hate collaboration, or I hate advisors, or I hate consultants. A lot of times it's because you didn't know how to choose it and you got ripped off, and somebody wasn't clear with how they were going to advise or consult you. It's very, very important, especially when you're moving into areas of business that you've never been in before. If you've done it before and you know what you're doing, then okay. But if you want to expose yourself to different ways of thinking, new ideas, somebody who's got that muscle, then choosing the right kind of consultant or the right kind of advisor can really, really be beneficial to you. Okay, so I'm going to show this video. It's going to give you some basics, because I know when I was running around the country as a consultant, I think a lot of people, especially people that I know, were probably like, dude, like, what is this? And even when I say my background is in consulting, and it's probably one of the greatest career choices that I made. And I know that it was divine because I didn't really know what it was. I just knew in college that I wanted to be a business consultant. And I knew right when I graduated that I wanted a job like that, because I wanted to have experience where I would be in and out of a lot of different businesses, getting exposed to a lot. I wanted to travel. I wanted to be put in a position where I could build businesses and advise people on how to build businesses. And so I initially went into public accounting, because back in those days, the only way to get into the consulting world was to go through the public accounting route. And then some years later, with the corruption from Enron and WorldCom through the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, they split consulting and public accounting. And what used to be sort of a good old boys network, then at that point, that regulation somewhat opened it up for people like me to be able to wedge in and get in the door. And so that's just kind of that professional evolution of it. But the beautiful thing about it is that as a consultant, I developed certain skill sets and certain professional muscle that allowed me to be able to analyze, build, develop, and put plans together very quickly, and to have a very keen eye. So much so that when I went into building my own businesses, I just kind of would pretend like I was my own client. And you'll see in the video here that it's a lot like being a doctor, which is how I ended up getting an honorary doctorate degree, because I understood the concept and the process once I got into medicine. And I was able to follow a certain pattern that made sense to the patients, to the clients. And so you'll see some of that on here today. And when we tie that in with Ramadan as professionals, you know, Allah is like, he's obviously more than this, but it's like a consultant. And I even sort of interact with Allah like a consultant. And I'll say, how should I be, how should I think on this? What's the best decision? And as I'm going through different scenarios, sometimes I'll sit down and I say, okay, Allah, I got to go over this with you. And I look at it like a consulting client almost relationship sometime. And so let's take a look at this video. I want you guys to be interactive. Ask me any questions in the chat that you want. And I will be right back.
Or want to know what consulting is, in this video, I'm going to cover everything you need to know. So what exactly is consulting? You might have heard of names McKinsey, Bain, BCG, Accenture, Deloitte. But what do these firms and consultants actually do? Well, the best way to think about what consultants do is think about your doctor. But instead of treating patients like me, consultants will treat a business. Like a doctor, a consultant will do a couple of things with a business. When you think about a doctor, there's a couple of things that every doctor will do when you come in for a visit. First, the doctor will assess your symptoms. Then they'll provide a diagnosis. Third, they're going to give you a prescription. Fourth, they're going to provide some bedside manners. That is, what do you have to do when you're in between visits? Fifth, they're going to provide some follow-up care just to make sure you're getting better. A consultant will do the same thing. Well, let's imagine, for example, Coca-Cola is having issues with one of their products. They're wondering, why isn't this product selling better? So they might hire some consultants to come in. And the consultants will do exactly what a doctor does. First, they're going to assess the symptoms. For example, they're going to look at the product line and think about, why isn't this drink selling well? Is it the price? Is it the packaging? Is it the taste? Is it the lack of marketing? Like, what's happening? And once they know what the symptoms are, they're going to look closely at it and provide a diagnosis. They might think, you know what? The problem here seems to be marketing enough. And then what they'll do, exactly what the client, Coca-Cola, needs to do. And then finally, they're going to follow up just to make sure how the marketing campaign went. Just to sure that Coca-Cola was able to get the outcome it wanted when it hired the consultants. So that's just an example of what consulting is like. And if that type of problem solving really resonated with you and you thought, oh, I can see myself doing that, being a consultant might actually be a really great career path for you. And why? About the major reasons. The first off is the compensation. In fact, most consulting firms and consultants pay in the top 5% of global earners. So imagine, even if you're like a 21-year-old leaving out of college, you're already making 6 figures from your first day. That's a pretty good sizable compensation. And of course, this only increases the further out you go in your career as well. So even if you have like a couple of years and you want to make a career change to consulting, most likely you're going to get something. And that's just the compensation. So besides earning on the top 5% of earners just on your base alone, you're going to get performance incentives as well as a sign-on bonus when you actually get the offer. That's a lot of money to start off with. But beyond just the compensation, there's a lot of other benefits as well. For example, consultants have a long being responsible as to the client. Nice. He loved consulting because of the travel. By the time he quit his consulting job, he had so many points that for the rest of his life, he never has to pay for another plane ticket or a hotel upgrade, because he's so nice in so many planes that airlines basically give him so many points and hotels have given him so many points that all his vacations moving forward for the rest of his life pretty much already paid for. So that's just the benefit of traveling. Beyond that, you also get the world's top healthcare as well as retirement, because the firms you work for want to make sure that you're in top health and that you're set up for retirement. What? So they're going to give you the best healthcare as well as the best retirement fund possible. Third, a lot of firms also have an education fund. So this could be, for example, you deciding to take an online course, or you actually going to get another degree. For example, if you're an undergrad, you might want to pursue an MBA, and the firm will pay for your MBA, assuming you come back to work for them for a few years. But beyond just the monetary benefits, there are also a lot of benefits for working in consulting. For example, you get some of the best mentorship that you can possibly have. These are people who have been in the business world for more years than you've been alive, and they're literally next door to you working. So it's so easy for me to be able just to knock on the door. For example, if I was thinking about entrepreneurship and there was someone who sold their business for $500 million and decided to become a partner at the firm, I was able to just schedule time on his calendar and be able to talk to him. And also the friends I made. The type of people that come into consulting are the people who are very ambitious, people who love learning, that likely share a lot of the values that you have. So some of my best friends to this day are people who I met during my time in consulting. And when clients bring in consultants, they're bringing in consultants to solve big problems. Because you're not going to go in there and decide what color the chair should be in the waiting room. For example, how should the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation spend their next $1 billion if their goal is to eradicate malaria? And because you're working on these high impact projects with these big clients, you're always going to be learning different skill sets, whether it's how to analyze a problem better, how to structure your thoughts, how to build confidence, or how to lead a team. You're always going to be learning as a consultant. And once you decide to leave consulting, the whole world is open to you. You have so many exit opportunities. For example, you might decide to stay in business and maybe your goal is to be a CEO of a big company. You might end up being the CEO of Google, Microsoft, or Starbucks. Or you might decide that you want to take your career completely different. You might end up being a Grammy winner like John Legend. Yes, John Legend was a consultant as well. So you can kind of see that all different types of people start their careers in management consulting. And that brings up another benefit of working in consulting, which is the career growth. Even if you only stay in consulting for a few years or you decide to stay until you retire, you're always going to be progressing. So all of these firms, early in your career, you can expect a promotion anywhere between 6 months to 2 years. And every time you get promoted, there's going to be another 30-40% pay raise. So you can imagine there are very few career paths that allow you to be able to do that. And that's a huge benefit why people want to stay in consulting. But if you are curious about what the progression is like at a consulting firm, it's pretty fast. So this is what a typical path will look like. For example, if you're straight out of school, you'll start off as an analyst. The title itself will change from firm to firm, but we'll call it an analyst at the lowest level. You'll stay there for about 2 to 3 years before getting promoted to associate. You can also enter associate as an MBA, or you might go get your MBA and then come back and the firm will pay for it. And you'll stay there for about 2 to 3 years before becoming a project manager, which is another 2 to 3 years, before finally becoming an associate. Lasts typipally about 2 to 4 years. And then you'll make partner for about 3 to 5 years. And then finally, you'll be a senior partner. So you kind of see here, the option is really quick. And at all levels, you're always going to be learning, up-leveling yourself. So at this point, you might be thinking, whoa, there's so many benefits to working in consulting. So what's the catch? Well, I presented all the side, which is working in consulting actually takes a hit on your work-life balance. If you're someone who likes having a 9-to-5 job, someone who expects to work 40 hours a week, expects to go home to your bed every single night, consulting is probably not the right career path for you. As a consultant, you are paid a lot and you are benefits and perks, but that comes with a trade-off of high expectations from the client and from the firm that employs you. So if you want a job that's 9 to 5, 40 hours a week, you know that you're not going to work the weekends ever, and that you're going to be able to go home in your bed every single day, consulting is probably not the right career path for you. While you're not going to be traveling 365 days and crazy like that, there are some sacrifices you do need to make when you are pursuing a career in consulting. For example, traditionally, consultants will work about 50 to 60 hours per week. So there's a lot of factors that can affect how many hours you work. So for example, it could be the project timeline. If you have 2 weeks to work on a project versus 2 years, then the 2 weeks is going to be a lot more intense. Second is the type of project. If it's a project that you and your team and your company have done over and over again, you probably have templates and shortcuts. But if it's the first time you're doing a certain type of project, you can expect a lot harder work because you're still trying to figure out the process. Third is you have to think about travel involved. For example, if you have to fly 5 hours to get to the client, you have to factor in things like getting to the airport, the flight, getting from the airport or to the client site, getting to the hotel, back to the airport, flying back to your home. So you can kind of see that those actually hours as well. So travel has a big component to do with it as well. And finally, it has a lot to do with the team that you're on. For example, if there's a lot of work, but very few people on your team, then per person a lot more work than if there's a little bit of work and a big team. So a lot of that really does vary. And there's a lot of factors that go into a project, but you can expect about 50 to 60 hours a week. And there are some projects where you'll work 60 to 80 hours per week. I know that's from my experience as well. So for example, one of my very first projects, we had a small team and it was a 3-month project, but we were working with a local school system. So it was a pro bono project. So as a result, I basically worked about 50 hours during that week, just trying to figure, the problem we were trying to figure out is how to train best teachers in the school district. So I got to interview teachers and get to know them on a personal level. So you can imagine that type of project is a lot more chill than the next project I had, which was a 2-year project where companies were thinking about merging, and we were on a 3-week project. And so I ended up working the weekends, working about 80 hours, actually some weeks even more during that time period. So you can kind of see that the extreme of what consulting can do there. So that's just some of the examples of how intense the hours can work and the trade-offs you have to make in your personal life. And then there's also lifestyle considerations as well. As I mentioned, consultants travel. Some people really love traveling. Like I mentioned earlier, the friend of mine ended up racking so many travel points that he's never has to pay for another hotel or another plane ticket in his life. He really loves traveling. But for me, that wasn't quite it. I was like, you could put me in a home bed. So when I did travel for projects, it was a negative on my lifestyle versus a plus. But again, every person varies on that. But I just want to be transparent with that. Travel isn't glamorous for every single. It's like, what's your reason for wanting to work in consulting? So it could be for numerous reasons. For example, you already know what you want to do, and working in consulting is like a stepping stone towards that. So for example, if you wanted to work in private equity or venture capital, and you know that having consulting sphere help you land those jobs, then that's a consideration. On the other extreme, if you don't know what you want to do, but you want to use consulting as a time to explore different projects, different functions, different organizations, different industries, different clients, that's a great reason, right? Is to be able to figure out what exactly do you want to be able to do with your life. And both extremes are different, right? But the goal is that you have to have a reason for why you want to work in consulting, because you're going to be giving up a lot of your lifestyle as well as your want the trade-off to be worth it for you. So even if you only work in consulting for 1 or 2 years, I want you to feel like those 12 to 24 months are going to be worth it for something in the end. So again, that's what if you're deciding if consulting is for you, is 10% of the world when it comes to what consultants actually do. In fact, I actually want to help.
All right. So I know that was a long video, but I think it was necessary for you to just kind of get it. So when I say that there was a point in my life where I said, if I never see a hotel again, I was okay, then that was it. It was during that time. Here's the other side of that. As he was explaining some of the projects, you got an idea of how companies utilize us as consultants. Anything from, if you go to a smaller firm, oftentimes, which I was at a big firm where oftentimes the projects are longer. So you might have like 9 month projects where you kind of relax and settle in. But I also was with small firms, and then I also did my own independent consulting. And there sometimes you tend to get the short projects because you may land clients that don't have a lot of money. You got to get in and get out. You got to really dedicate to them. And so, like he said, in a 2-week period, you might put in 100 hours. So it really just kind of depends. Now, on the business side, why do you want somebody like us? You want somebody who can come in and help you solve your problems, but who can think outside the box. Somebody that has the ability to come in, help you navigate and reach your goals. Your goal may be like, look, we're going through this merger, but we don't want to spend a lot of money merging. Or we're going through this merger, but we want to make sure that we're properly handling our staffing. So there may be staffing. You may say, we're going through this merger and certain departments are going to be eliminated. And then some departments we're going to keep. And we need you to help us figure that out. You may say, we're going through this merger, or I'm trying to sell the company and I need a valuation. I need to understand what's important. There's those kind of things. Sometimes people bring you in to do product consulting. It varies. I've had situations where the firm would say, hey, we got a client who wants to make a smooth transition because they got to get rid of their CFO. And they want you to come in and put a plan together on how to get rid of the CFO. And then I did so good with putting the plan together, they asked me to be an interim CFO. And so I stayed at that place for about 9 months. That happens also. For me, I love the variety of consulting. You kind of get addicted to it. So while a lot of my friends were taking jobs where they may have done a lot at that company, but they weren't at the same company all the time. The other piece about consulting is that it will help you break out of your safety zone. If you're a person who can't function unless things are really comfortable and really safe, going to a consulting firm is probably one of the best things for you, because you're always going to be uncomfortable. You're always going into new environments. You're going into new spaces where you don't know people. Sometimes people don't want to see you. Sometimes people don't like you. Sometimes they're really nice. It really just depends on the client. But it helps you not worry so much about what other people think, but on how to really and truly be effective. And I think it's one of the best career choices for becoming an entrepreneur, because you learn so much and you learn to get out of your own head. One of the biggest challenges that we have as entrepreneurs is that many of us are so incredibly emotional. And so learning as a consultant, you get out of that emotional stuff relatively quickly. And you'll have some clients that are very conservative. You'll have some that are not. And so you learn that balance as well. But I would say it was probably one of the best career choices that I could have made. Now, yeah, work-life balance is definitely going to be impacted. Most consultants tend to marry and date other consultants. For me, as you can see, I'm a Black woman, I'm a Muslim, and I didn't meet a lot of Black men or Black Muslim or Black conscious men in the consulting world. And so, that aspect of meeting and marrying somebody in the consulting world is a challenge. And then if you are dating or with someone outside of the consulting world, they may not understand what you're doing and who you doing it with and why you moving around like that. They just may not get it, especially if you end up being with someone who's more of a traditional 40-hour-a-week working person. They're not going to really understand how some days, some weeks you're nice and smooth. You got a short client and you could take Thursday and Friday off. And then some weeks you got this big client, you got a giant deadline, and so it just depends. All right. As a business person, learn how to analyze and utilize consulting, collaborators, and partners in your business. Think about it this way. If you knew how to take the business to the next level, you would have done it already. If you knew how to solve all the problems in your business, you would have done it already. If you had time to do it, you would have done it already. This is why, you see the Millionaires Club, you see the Billionaires Club. There's all these places where people have advisors and they have friends and they put people on their board of directors. One of the biggest things that smart companies do is they put people like us on their board of directors. Why? Because we can think through a number of different scenarios. And at that level, it's all about collaboration. When I meet business people that are still competing, I know that they're at another level. You've got to move from competition to collaboration. And one of the last things that I would say about that, also just to help from an advisory standpoint, to help you understand how important it is to have a consultant. Oh, and you can negotiate rates. If you can just say, hey, I got $1,500 to pay a consultant to help me do X, Y, Z. And then the consultant can tell you what they can do for you. Make sure that person has a background. Either they're a subject matter expert in a particular subject, or they have a background as a consultant. Because here's the problem. A lot of people may be a marketing expert. They may be a financial expert, but they don't know how to consult and work and interact with a client. They don't know how to go in and assess. Their bedside manner isn't that good. It's like going to a doctor. He may be a cancer specialist, but he got horrible bedside manner. And so he's not handling you properly. He's not speaking to you properly. You're uncomfortable. And so you may not get the best benefits out of that expertise. As opposed to if you had gone to someone with better bedside manner, you may accept the diagnosis and the medication and things like that better. All right. But advising, get that in your business. join groups. One of the things we're going to be doing this summer is having these Mind of an Entrepreneur and Do for Self mastermind groups where you can come together with other like-minded business people in these settings. Many of them are going to be at Sajdah House. That house has a history of advisory and consulting and collaboration. So we said, what better place to do it? Because then you can join some kind of group where you can utilize the brain power of other people. It's very, very amateur to say, you know what, I don't care. I don't want to talk to nobody else. I'm just going to do what I want to do, how I want to do it, and when I want to do it. It's very amateur because there's going to be a lot of things that you can't see, that you can't do. And even if you are in love, if you have a heart for something, if you've never done it before, you want to deal with those kinds of pitfalls and risk factors up front, potential pitfalls. Okay. So to talk about really quickly the history of that house when it comes to consulting and advisory. The house was built in 1902 by William French Burrell. He was the president of the Libby's Food Company. He also was a Jewish Mason, and he had some form of rank in the Masonic order that he was a part of. And in that Masonic order were a number of different businessmen and women, including his future wife, Louisa Libby, who was the heir to the Libby's food throne. At that time, he was a meat canner and a meat packer. So he was close to people like the Swifts and the Oscars and the Myers. And she was a member of the Daughters of the Revolution. So she had her own little networking. They built this spiritual home with all of these different spiritual elements in it, because what they wanted to do was make sure that as they brought their friends in who were building businesses as they migrated to Chicago, they wanted a spiritual place so that they could get the most out of their consulting, advisory, cooperative economics, and collaboration. And so when we look at some of the manifest of the visitors at the house, you saw the Spiegels, the Hoovers, the Goodyears. And in reading some of that, which we'll share it even at some of our mastermind groups, they would come together. And let's say you are part of the group and you're Mr. Goodyear and you got a problem with your rubber supply, then other people at the table are going to come together and try to help you figure out how to solve your supply problem. If you come to the group and you're the Roebucks from Sears and Roebuck, or you're the Spiegels, or you're Mr. Montgomery Ward, and you say, hey, we got a retail issue, or I want to sell Levi's and they act crazy with me, so how do I make my own jeans? Then you bring it to the group, and the group, in a form of like a cooperative economics, advises you. The requirement is just that you give back. And they dined together, they hung out together, they partied together, and it became a lifestyle. And they built these massive businesses right from that house. And then in 1952, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad bought the house. At that time, it had been turned into a rooming house. And the reason why it was turned into a rooming house, we think, is because the Libbys passed away and died off. There was a woman who was a descendant of Louisa Libby who actually spoke to. And once they left, I guess the house became something that they would use for migrants who stayed there, because it has a lot of ensuite bedrooms. When the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came there, more people, leaders, iconic figures in the civil rights community came to that house than any other property in modern day Black history, coming to at the foot of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad to interview him, to get advisory, for him to consult on projects and issues from politics to education to health to civil rights, you name it, to entertainment, to sports, and sometimes just interpersonal things. I've heard so many stories about people say, I was going through a divorce and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad consulted me right from that house. I was addicted to drugs and he helped me. And so there's so many different, so much historical epigenetics in the energy and the fibers of that house, that these types of things where we do collaboration and consulting and advisory work, we want to be able to do from there, so that people are leaving there feeling more empowered, more whole, and knowing something of the great history, so that we move out and continue to uplift the work in the name of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And so with that, we put a lot of spirit, a lot of prayer into the careful restoration and renovation. And when you come there, you will see that it is really, really sacred space. And it's been handled like that ever since the very beginning, continues to be handled like that. And so for that reason, I believe the house blesses us. And again, as I mentioned, from there, we will continue to tell the history and uplift the history of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and then utilize some of those skill sets and benefits of the history to help us right now, today, in modern day times. So that's my talk today on consulting. I'm going to be doing possibly a special show very soon. There's a few things that have taken place that I want to share. So I apologize for my energy being a little bit down, but I'm navigating through it, and I'll talk to you all about it possibly tomorrow. I'll be ready. We'll see. Okay. So with that, family, support the network, support what we're doing. You can Cash App Sajdah Enterprises. If you have graduates that you want to pay them to have a consulting session with me, if you pay for one session, I'll give you one for free. I've been getting a lot of students who are either graduating from high school or college, who are just trying to get some advice on how to move forward with their career, which is also very important. You don't have to play Russian roulette, I know, like I did. I always wanted to be in business, studied business all my life. My parents supported me in business by bringing me documents, and it was just a whole support network. But then I went to school because my counselor told me I had such good grades. She said, you should either be a doctor or a computer engineer. And so I went and majored in computer engineering. And when I majored in computer engineering, I got into the engineering college and I did an internship, and I was like, ugh, I don't really like this. And then I ended up going into finance and accounting, and then rolled on from there. But the beautiful thing is that everything that I thought about majoring in, I utilize today. So I must have been really digging deep into my spirituality, because first I thought about being a psychiatrist. And I do a lot of coaching and consulting and motivation and all of mindset stuff today. Then I thought about computer engineering, and the engineering has helped me my entire career, not only as a consultant, but as a developer in real estate. And then I went into finance and accounting, which I utilize often. So, but I probably spent extra money. I even stayed an extra semester and got a dual degree just because I had so many extra credits trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Okay. So thank you all. Peace and blessings, you all. Peace and blessings, Mom. Thank you for joining. Ramadan Mubarak. There is a LinkedIn user says, great talk. Always wanted to know the in and out about this topic. Thank you. And Brother Reginald Muhammad is here, says, wa alaikum salam, Ramadan Kareem. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to those of you who I can see who are here, who are being shy. All right, family, make a donation. We're asking everybody to give $25 to the cause, to all the work that I'm doing. I try not to charge a lot. Even during Savior's Day for admission for the house, it was only $25. Probably should have been more than that, but I wanted to be sensitive to Savior's Day and all of us traveling. And I want to keep the price down because I want to make it accessible We just ask that you respect what we're doing. We're going to be doing some youth day camps and boot camps this summer. So make sure you go to the website, Sajdah Enterprises, and sign up. So, because we're carefully selecting the youth, it's not going to be a thing where we open the floodgates and the babies get to come in there and act ratchet and do a hookup and all of that stuff. We are carefully selecting people, and it'll probably only be somewhere around 20 or so students. So that's something for you to keep your eyes open for, and some of the other events. But we're asking everybody to give $25 today. Just go to Cash App, Sajdah Enterprises, give that $25, and that will help us as we move forward with so many things. This is a very expensive endeavor. And of course, if you want to be a sponsor, sponsorships start at $2,500. And if you email me, email address is going across the bottom, sajdahhouse@gmail.com. I think it's going on there. But if you email me, or if you go on the website and just make an inquiry, I can send you a sponsorship opportunity deck. You get an opportunity to have your name on a plaque that will be there in forever, for as long as the museum lives. Your name will be on that plaque. You see this oftentimes at museums, and we have different levels of sponsorship, but it starts at $2,500, only $2,500. So this has been a huge project, and we want to give everybody an opportunity to participate and have their name proudly displayed in the space. And we're going to start working on those plaques and things like that this summer. And we want you to get in. Okay. We have event sponsorships as well, but we can send you that sponsorship deck. Just go in, make an inquiry, and we can talk about that. I'll be happy to do a Zoom call with you and walk through the opportunity deck, help you customize something. This has been great for if you have a relative who's been a pioneer, or you want to sponsor a pioneer and say, hey, I want them to have their name in the house. It's also great if you are a pioneer and you have archives that you want to donate. We've had that happen as well, where some of our pioneers have become donors, and they've donated some of their items, their Nation of Islam items, and we've made them sponsors as well. So we can be creative. It's our thing to do. We can do it the way we want to do it. So in the meanwhile, give your $25, go to Cash App, Sajdah Enterprises. And if you want to give more, certainly we welcome that as well. All right, family, peace and blessings. Love you all. Visit our virtual gift shop, and we'll see you soon, inshallah, tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Peace and blessings.